was there, hated the day. The day was a miserable day. I mean, it was a...
Really? I thought...
Well, was it? Well, I can tell you now, it was the worst royal engagement I ever did, a royal wedding I ever did.
What was supposed to be the fairy tale wedding of the decade may have actually been the moment the royal family began to fracture beyond repair. To the world, it looked like a glittering celebration watched by millions, a love story wrapped in tiaras, tradition, and history. But according to those who were there, the reality was something entirely different. Behind the smiles, the designer dresses, and the carriage ride through Windsor, whispers of chaos, resentment, and cold strategy followed every move. This wasn't just a wedding. For many insiders, it was the first glimpse of a much bigger plan, one that would change the monarchy forever. On television, the wedding of Prince Harry and Meghan Markle looked like perfection. The cathedral was breathtaking, the bride radiant, and the crowd euphoric. Media outlets called it the wedding of the century, a moment that would breathe fresh life into the monarchy. But behind the cameras, insiders describe a very different scene. Photographers complained of being deliberately blocked from key shots. Guests muttered under their breath about the heat and the arrangements. And seasoned royal photographer Arthur Edwards admitted it was the worst royal wedding he had ever covered. For him, it wasn't a celebration of love. It was a carefully staged event where almost everything went wrong. And that, he said, was only the beginning. Perhaps the first sign that this wasn't going to be a traditional royal wedding came from the guest list. Normally, royal weddings are family affairs, with friends, aristocrats, and long-serving dignitaries filling the seats. But Meghan and Harry's wedding was different. The pews were stacked with Hollywood names: Oprah Winfrey, Elton John, Serena Williams, George, and Amal Clooney. Many of them barely knew the couple. Oprah, for example, had reportedly met Meghan only once before the big day, and some celebrities weren't buying into the spectacle at all. Reese Witherspoon declined her invitation, allegedly saying, "Why would I go? I don't even know them." For royal traditionalists, the optics were troubling. Long-serving members of the Crown's inner circle felt sidelined, while A-list celebrities they'd never met were treated like honored guests. To them, this wasn't a family celebration. It was a red carpet event designed for cameras, not for kin. But if the guest list raised eyebrows, what came next left people downright furious. Windsor Castle's grounds looked spectacular on television, but for those standing there, the day felt like torture. The sun beat down with brutal intensity, and guests were dressed in heavy suits and gowns designed for formality, not comfort. Arthur Edwards recalls sweating through his royal uniform, wishing he could escape the sweltering air. Guests clutched their official wedding programs and used them as makeshift fans. Some muttered that the only thing regal about the event was the discomfort. And then came the food, or rather, the lack of it. Instead of the lavish royal feast everyone expected, trays of tiny canapes floated through the crowd. They were elegant, yes, but so small and infrequent that many guests left hungrier than they'd arrived. Whispers spread quickly. "We stood in the heat for hours for this." One guest reportedly joked they'd have been better off staying home with a sandwich. But the heat and hunger were only surface problems. Behind the scenes, a far more serious tension was unfolding, one that had little to do with catering and everything to do with Harry himself. For decades, royal photographers were a trusted part of family ceremonies. They were the ones who delivered those iconic images to newspapers worldwide, ensuring history was captured with grace. But on this day, Prince Harry made it clear he wasn't playing along. Multiple photographers reported that he deliberately avoided their cameras, looking the other way during key moments, ensuring their shots were useless. Arthur Edwards even admitted that not a single one of his photos made it to print. For a royal wedding, a once-in-a-generation event, that was almost unthinkable. Why would Harry do this? Insiders point to his deep resentment of the press and their treatment of Meghan in the months leading up to the wedding. Harsh headlines, relentless coverage, and unfair comparisons to Kate Middleton had left him seething. And the wedding, rather than being an olive branch, became a battlefield. His silent protest sent a message: this wasn't the media's day. But in punishing the photographers, Harry may have also punished the monarchy's image. And the backlash didn't stop there. Guests soon realized the seating arrangements were more than just disorganized. They were insulting. Senior royals who had dedicated decades of service to the crown were shuffled to the back rows, while lesser-known figures found themselves in prime positions near the front. For those who value tradition and hierarchy, it was a public slap in the face. Even Arthur Edwards, seated alongside a minor royal, found his view blocked, joking that he might as well have been watching the event through a Jeep's app. Seating may sound trivial, but in royal circles, it's everything. Placement reflects rank, respect, and recognition. And to shuffle the most loyal figures to the sidelines signaled something more than carelessness. It suggested deliberate choices. Whispers of resentment rippled through the pews, and many left feeling humiliated. But for Meghan and Harry, insiders claim this was the point. The more people reflect on the day, the clearer it seems that this wasn't just a wedding, it was a launch pad. From the Hollywood guest list to the media restrictions, everything about it felt less like royal tradition and more like brand strategy. For Meghan and Harry, this wasn't only about celebrating love. It was about positioning themselves for a future outside the monarchy. Arthur Edwards himself described it as a formal networking event, where image mattered more than intimacy. And in hindsight, it's hard to ignore how quickly things escalated after. Within 2 years, Meghan and Harry would step back from royal duties entirely, choosing a new life in California. Looking back, some say the wedding wasn't just a union. It was their first public. If the wedding left cracks in the royal family, the Oprah interview shattered them. In 2021, Meghan and Harry sat down in their California home to reveal explosive claims about the monarchy. They spoke of racism, mistreatment, and an environment so toxic they felt forced to leave. The world was stunned. But for insiders like Arthur Edwards, the interview felt like betrayal. He described it as one-sided and unfair, arguing that it painted the royal family in the worst possible light without giving them a chance to respond. The damage, however, was done. The global headlines were brutal. Accusations of racism and cruelty spread across front pages, leaving the monarchy scrambling to defend itself. And for many observers, it became clear. What had started at the wedding as a subtle rebrand had now exploded into open war. In the years since, the rift has only deepened. Archie and Lilibet, Harry and Meghan's 2 children, have rarely been seen with the royal family. While the couple insists they want privacy, critics argue that the children are being used as pawns in a larger feud. The saddest part? The children have little relationship with their grandfather, King Charles, or their cousins in the UK. Even insiders sympathetic to Meghan admit it's heartbreaking. A royal childhood is built on bonds, cousins playing together, grandparents guiding the next generation. But for Archie and Lilibet, that world is far away, blocked by bitterness and distrust. And the more time passes, the harder reconciliation becomes. When Harry returned to the UK for the Invictus Game ceremony, another drama unfolded. He was reportedly offered accommodations at royal residences, some of the most secure buildings in the world. But he declined, citing safety concerns, and instead booked himself into a luxury hotel near Windsor. To many, this didn't make sense. The palace is protected by some of the most advanced security in Britain. If Harry didn't feel safe there, what was really going on? Some insiders believe the excuse was a smokescreen. By choosing a hotel and managing his own security detail, Harry was sending a message. He was no longer part of the institution. He wanted distance, autonomy, and above all, control. Looking back, it's hard to see Harry and Meghan's wedding as just a romantic event. For insiders like Arthur Edwards, it was a disaster. Overheated guests, hungry crowds, frustrated photographers, and royal snubs. But for Meghan and Harry, it may have been something else entirely. The wedding was not the end of their royal story. It was the beginning of a new chapter, one where love, image, and strategy collided. From celebrity guest lists to Oprah tell-alls, from strained family ties to controversial security choices, everything traces back to that day in Windsor. So maybe the question isn't whether it was the wedding of the century. Maybe the real question is this: was it the day the monarchy itself began to crack? What do you think? Was it truly a fairy tale, or was it all just part of a much bigger game?